I'm going to read from Africa's Child, the first book in my Dancing Soul trilogy. Chapter 1. Where is my mother? As a child, I prayed often and I prayed hard. Like all children of the orphanage and boarding school at Kifungilo, I was required to say many prayers in Latin when we went to church every day. But I often stayed after services to pray in Swahili for my one great longing, to find my mother. I liked the prayers I made up best. I felt that Jesus stopped what he was doing and listened to me, and he sometimes talked to me even though I was not praying in Latin. I began my prayer sessions by kneeling in a corner near a nativity scene. Making the sign of the cross to get Jesus' attention, I would say, "Baby Jesus, this is Mary." Jesus, who remained a baby for me during all my years at the orphanage, replied, "I know." I went straight to the point. "I am now 5 years old. Have you found my mother yet?" I didn't know my birthday, and my friend Elizabeth was 5, and we decided that I was 5 years old too. I hoped that Jesus would have good news for me and that my mother would come to take me away from the orphanage. "You must believe, Sister Silvestris, your Kifungilo mother. She told you your prayers will be answered one day," he replied. "How far away is one day?" He was quiet for a long time, then he answered, "You will always have a mother to take care of you. But I want my real mother. She wouldn't beat me and call me a Schwarze Teufel." "You are not a black devil, and you will always have a mother," he repeated and closed his eyes. This meant that baby Jesus was tired, and although he still listened to me, he didn't answer. I discussed with Jesus the trials of my life at the orphanage, being hungry, having the other orphans call me Fat Mary and Piggy, getting a deserved beating with a cane from Sister Silvestris, and most feared of all, getting undeserved thrashings along with blows, kicks, and punches from one of the big orphan girls. I promised to be a very good girl and said goodbye to baby Jesus. After each prayer session, I left the quiet church with the faith and hope I needed to face my life. For Mass, I wore my one Sunday dress and my one pair of shoes. As I walked down the 5 steps from the church on a Sunday, admiring my white canvas shoes and wondering when Jesus would find my mother, I heard a small voice. "Mary, why do you stay in church any longer than you have to? What are you doing there?" "Praying," I said, catching up to Elizabeth, my dearest and best friend. She, unlike me, who had been abandoned by my parents, had both a father and a mother. Because in this orphanage not everyone was an orphan, there were painful inequities in how we were treated by the sisters and the big girls. Children who had both parents received privileged treatment. Also, the orphanage was reputed to have the best school for half-caste children in the country, so interracial couples and single parents who loved, wanted, and cared for their children brought them to Kifungilo to be educated. They visited their children often, brought them gifts of food, toys, and clothing, and took them home for the holidays. Most children had at least an African mother, and they were treated the next best. Some, like me, were true orphans and didn't have those benefits. Elizabeth loved me, although I wondered why when she listed all the things wrong with me. "Mary, you are fat and you have a round face. You stretch out my shoes and mess up my doll. You always ask to share my candy. You don't have a mother and you cry all the time." I was happy she had waited for me, so I just listened as she recited my faults. "The only good thing about you, Fat Mary, is your nice hair, and you make me laugh when we play. Please, please, Elizabeth, just for today, don't call me Fat Mary." "That's what Sister Silvestris calls you, and you are fat." With both hands, she pinched my cheeks just like Sister Silvestris and mimicked, "This is my Fat Mary." We both laughed, and then I got a little serious. If you don't call me that name today, I promise not to cry all day, no matter what. Holding hands, we started towards the children's quarters up a hill beyond the convent. We skipped along the cobblestone path, past the life-size statue of St. Joseph, past the big metal prayer bell encased in its 10-foot ivy arch, past the convent building housing over 25 German nuns. We sat down on the ground by the fish pond in front of the grotto of Our Lady of Fatima. Below us, to our left, was a wide valley with scattered African villages. Elizabeth wore a pink shirtwaist dress with blue daisies and a white Peter Pan collar. Her black patent leather shoes had straps that fastened with rhinestone buttons. Her pink socks were trimmed with dark blue lace. Tied around her black, coarse, thick hair was a wide yellow ribbon that ended in a bow on top of her head. I often felt annoyed when she played with my hair, as she started doing now. But today I was grateful she had waited for me, so I didn't complain. She removed the tiny red ribbons from the ends of my pigtails and undid one long braid and then the other. The comb she used on my hair was missing most of its teeth. I didn't fuss because she was my friend. She piled my hair on top of my head, and as I held it in place with both hands, she tied her yellow ribbon around my head and made a large bow on top. I let my hair fall down over the ribbon and felt very pretty. Now it was her turn. I planted the comb onto her scalp and tried to rake the tangles out of her frizzy, kinky, disobedient hair while she yelped and jumped with each jab. I managed to make 2 loopy braids, almost like the one she undid from my hair, and tied my tiny ribbons at the ends to keep her braids from coming undone. Elizabeth said she felt pretty too. We continued our ascent to the children's quarters, running along the steep road lined with eucalyptus trees, past Sister Nerea's dentistry, where she provided dental services for patients from near and far, past the brick-making pit, past the bas-relief of St. Don Bosco, after whom our orphanage was named, because he was the patron saint of abandoned children. Then we climbed 3 short stone steps and burst into the dining hall. We were late for breakfast. That meant we would be punished either by having our food taken away or by being beaten with a stick. The other children were already seated on benches 10 to a side, facing the 3 by 8 foot table. The best part of Sunday, besides not having chores, was our breakfast of 1 slice of wheat bread set at each place on the rough wooden table and a tumbler of sweetened peppermint tea. To pay homage to the big girls in charge of bathing us, washing our clothes, and combing our hair, we little girls carried our slices of bread in the palms of our hands to the big girls. They would help themselves to a piece or not take it. My big girl was Zami. She had darker skin, a long face with an irregular dark brown mole on the tip of her nose, coarse hair, large breasts, a pot belly, and no waistline. As I held my piece of bread to her, she took one look at my new hairdo. "You don't like my braiding?" She breathed down on me as I looked up at her terrifying face. "Why are you so late for breakfast?" "I was playing with Elizabeth. She did my hair." Zami's huge belly jiggled as she grabbed my upper arms. "Don't mess with my work." "Please don't beat me. I won't do it again, I promise." She pinched my arms hard and shook me until I almost dropped the bread. When she let go, I set the bread on the table and started to run away from her. She grabbed my skirt with one hand and pulled my hair with the other, saying, "Next time, get my bread here on time, you stupid pig." "I will, I promise." As I turned to walk back to my table, she reached under my skirt and grabbed a thick fold of skin on my thigh and pinched me hard. Another big girl congratulated her. "You have to teach this brat some manners." "Not like that." Rosa was sitting near Zami, stood up and confronted her. Rosa had been in charge of me from age 2 to 5 before I was given to Zami. "You're cruel to Mary. You are the only one who takes the whole slice of bread. What's she supposed to eat?" "Shut your mouth," Zami growled at her. "You're always beating the poor girl. It isn't right." "I said, shut up, you bloody fool," Zami shouted, slamming her fist on the table. "I'm not afraid of you." Rosa, who was about half the size of Zami and had severe asthma, spat at her from the corner of her table. Zami leapt from the bench, grabbed Rosa by her shoulders and threw her to the floor. Plates and spoons flew in all directions as the big girls took sides. Most of them cheered Zami on, but the little children rooted for Rosa. Zami pinned Rosa to the ground and sat on her. "Mama yangu, what's going on? Is it Zami again?" Sister Silvestri strode briskly across the dining room using her favorite Swahili expression of surprise and dismay. "Zami, Zami, why are you so violent? Stop right now." Zami continued hitting Rosa on the face and chest and pulling her hair. "Zami," I said, "stop it." Sister's face was red, and she made the grinding sound with her teeth that always preceded a severe beating. Zami let go of Rosa. Still huffing and puffing, swearing and clenching her fists, Zami cut her way through the now quiet crowd and slid to her place at the table. "What happened?" Sister asked. No one said a word. Even Rosa, whose right eye was starting to swell and whose nose was bleeding, said nothing. When Sister saw how badly Rosa was hurt, she went for the stick she stored in her cupboard. She then beat Zami with it from head to foot until she ran out of the dining room shouting obscenities at both Sister and Rosa. "Hasira, Hasira," Sister shook her head. "Anger, such anger. We must pray for Zami and her terrible temper." I was trembling with fear, but I remembered my early promise to Elizabeth that no matter what happened that day, I wouldn't cry. I controlled the forbidden tears in my heaving chest and took my seat. I couldn't look at Rosa. The big girls were comforting her. I reached for my cup and took a big gulp of sweet tea. With each swallow, I hacked away at the lump in my chest. When my cup was empty, the lump was smaller. Elizabeth sat at the table across from me. I was determined to show her how strong I was. Since I had already swallowed my tears, I knew if I looked at her now, I wouldn't cry. She tilted her head to one side and smiling, she showed me bits and pieces of bread she had collected from the other children at her table. Sister Silvestris rang the bell to dismiss us and we raced out the door. Outside, I savored the scrunched up morsels of bread that Elizabeth ceremoniously placed in my hand one by one.